Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to explore one of the most fascinating topics in psychology: how memory works. Think about your day so far. Can you remember what you had for breakfast? Can you remember the first English sentence you heard this morning? If you can answer these questions, your memory is already at work. Memory allows us to learn, solve problems, communicate with others, and make decisions. Without memory, every experience would feel completely new. So, how does the human brain store and retrieve information? Let's find out. Part 1. What is memory? Memory is the brain's ability to receive, store, and retrieve information. However, memory is not like a video camera that records everything perfectly. Instead, it is an active process. Each time we remember something, our brain reconstructs the memory using different pieces of information. For this reason, our memories can sometimes be incomplete or even inaccurate. Psychologists have found that memory is constantly changing as we gain new experiences. Part 2. 3 types of memory. Researchers generally divide memory into 3 main stages. The first is sensory memory. Sensory memory briefly holds information from our senses, such as sights and sounds. It usually lasts for less than a second. The second stage is short-term memory, sometimes called working memory. This is where information is temporarily stored while we are thinking. For example, when someone tells you a phone number and you repeat it in your mind before writing it down, you are using working memory. However, working memory has a limited capacity. Most people can only hold a small amount of information at one time. Finally, there is long-term memory. This is where information can remain for months, years, or even a lifetime. Your native language, childhood memories, and important life experiences are all stored in long-term memory. Part 3. How memories become long-term. So, how does information move from short-term memory to long-term memory? One important factor is repetition. The more often we review information, the stronger the connections between brain cells become. Another important factor is meaning. We are much more likely to remember information that has personal significance or connects to knowledge we already have. Sleep also plays an essential role. During sleep, the brain organizes and strengthens memories that were formed during the day. This process is known as memory consolidation. Scientists believe that getting enough sleep is one of the best ways to improve learning. Part 4. Why we forget. If memory is so powerful, why do we forget things? There are several reasons. Sometimes memories simply become weaker over time if they are not used. In other cases, new information interferes with older memories. This is called interference. Stress and lack of sleep can also make it more difficult to remember information. Interestingly, forgetting is not always a bad thing. By removing unnecessary information, the brain can focus on memories that are more useful. In other words, forgetting may actually help us learn more efficiently. Part 5. Memory and learning English now. Let's connect this idea to language learning. Imagine you hear a new English sentence. First, it enters your sensory memory. If you pay attention, it moves into your working memory. Then, by repeating the sentence several times and using it in conversation, you increase the chance that it will become part of your long-term memory. This is one reason why techniques such as shadowing are so effective. Shadowing requires you to listen, remember, and speak almost at the same time. As a result, You actively use your working memory while strengthening long-term learning. Instead of simply recognizing English, you train your brain to produce it. Conclusion. To summarize, memory is not a simple storage system. It is an active process that involves receiving, organizing, storing, and retrieving information. Psychologists generally describe memory as moving through sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. Understanding how memory works can help us become better learners. Whether you are studying for TOEFL, IELTS, or simply improving your English, knowing how your brain learns is just as important as knowing what to study. The next time you practice English, remember this. Every sentence you hear, repeat, and use is helping your brain build stronger memories. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in our next lecture.